outside forces might step in to take over. But the conservative movement's civil war, as it played out in the Turning Point USA conference, America Fest, a couple of weeks ago, um, hasn't really, I wouldn't say the left has taken advantage of it, or they have tried, but at least as far as I can tell, um, it isn't really working out. And the problem is, if you look at bad ideas on one side and you fight them with bad ideas, you don't really win. We are going to talk today about the left's reaction to what happened at America Fest and beyond. Welcome to the reality show. I'm Razi Ginsburg, joined by Stuart Margolis, David Raboy, Daniel Kraus. I'm going to go to the three of you for comments, and then we're going to play some clips from some um, leftist YouTubers reacting to the conservative civil war. Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, I've long noted that both sides are actually pretty good at diagnosing or pointing out the problems with the other side. And these commentators that we're about to see, they're often spot on in recognizing the contradictions, the hypocrisy, the problems with the ideas, but they're not very good at actually putting forth a positive message or really coherent ideas of any sort. Both sides really struggle with that, and I think that's why the left is not able to take advantage of this, quote unquote, civil war as effectively as they might, because they don't really have the ideas that are needed to effectively fight the positive ideas.
Yeah, David, one thing I noticed was that some leftists, were siding with Ben Shapiro. Some were siding with the other side. It's very difficult for them because they hate, both sides of this uh, argument, but some hate some more than the others.
Right. It's interesting. I agree with the point that both sides are far more adept at seeing the problems of their opposite number. I think that kind of only gets more and more true um, in some ways. But what's interesting now is like what we haven't seen. I mean, we've got a selection of clips that we're going to play today of, let's say, left-wing podcasters and influencers talking about it. The dog that hasn't barked is the mainstream media. Those guys are all very, pretty silent. They're keeping their powder dry. I know I've pitched some of these people on stories about this. And it's like, yeah, yeah, maybe, that sounds interesting. Maybe, we'll do it. And it's like, put it in the file for, 2028, because that's when this is really going to kick off. And so what we're seeing from, like, let's say the lower level, the more hyper online left, talking about this is like, yeah, I mean, they have a need for content, as well, the same as the right in the attention economy. So I think that's what's happening. Like they have no, you know, um, they're like the junior partners, in this, where the mainstream media is the senior partner, and they know they basically don't have an effect on what happens on the right, or really even that much on the left. But they're talking about it anyway, which is interesting. So we'll see the clips.
Yeah, and we also have a need for content. So I want to thank both Ben Shapiro for, standing up to these people, and for the other side for going full Nazi and providing us for so much stuff to talk about. Daniel.
Well, I'll say the opposite. Please, President of the United States or anybody else, don't give us content, because no content means the civilization is okay, nothing is going bad. We can actually focus on we can focus on actually creating, rather than just making sure the system itself that enables creation is like in its place. So I'll take, I'll be glad to lose my job when the time comes. Uh just I'll have a lot of comments on what specifically they say. I should say we will be playing three specific people. We'll be playing David Pakman, Cal Kolinsky, and Hasan Piker, which I think is like a good intersection from like the kind of like center left, especially I think like David Pakman is like, if there is such a thing as like reasonable left, you could like put him that. Like he's clearly still a leftist, but not insane. And all the way to Hasan Piker, who I don't think he has a problem with anti-Semitism. So I don't really know what he's calling out here. Um, but yeah, any preference for who we start with, or should I pick?
Um, let's.
All right, too late. We're starting with Hasan.
I will give you my initial takeaway from Turning Point USA weekend. Utter defeat for Ben Shapiro, absolute victory for anti-Semitism in general. Like incredible victory for anti-Semites all around. It's pretty much over. It's never been more over than it is. I think I think it's time to welcome Jews to, Muslim status. Welcome. You're probably not going to appreciate it. Let's be real, but you will see what it's like. It's not great. I will admit, the non-white status for Jews is coming for sure. Adam Friedland was right.
Yeah, can we pause
it's not
here?
the worst
Because
thing overall.
Yeah, I know you probably want to play more of it. We
Well,
can.
it's just 5 more seconds.
All right.
It's not the worst thing overall. It's not great. I won't lie to you.
What an absolute piece of shit. I can't believe, I know we're due a whole episode about Hasan Piker soon. I will probably call in sick that day because I'm sick right now just from hearing him. Yeah, Jews had non-white status in some places. You may have heard, of 6 million being killed for not being pure white. The idea that, by the way, that Muslims experience anything close to what Jews experience today in America and anywhere in the West is despicable to even bring that up. And of course, Hasan Piker, when I heard the beginning of it, I'm saying, I'm wondering if when he says the anti-Semites won, is he celebrating it because is he openly anti-Semitic? And I think, the left-wing anti-Semitism, that's a big difference between the right on the right, the Candace Owenses and Tucker Carlson's, and certainly Nick Fuentes don't hide it at all. On the left, they seemingly can't open their mouth without lying. Stuart.
Certainly from this, it does not seem like he's openly anti-Semitic at all. I think he's certainly anti-Israel and anti-Zionist. That's a whole discussion in and of itself. But certainly he would. I'm quite sure he would never admit to being anti-Semitic, for whatever that's worth. Whereas I think now you're right. The left lies or conceals or they're not ready to be kind of openly anti-Semitic, and unfortunately now there are forces on the right where they've decided they don't need to be cloaked anymore. They can be open, and that's not a good thing.
David, a few years ago,
go
the
ahead.
left was demanding that people be actively anti-racist by being anti-white, and now they are fighting against anti-Semitism by basically saying Jews don't know what it's like to be persecuted, which is shocking, and advocating for the people fighting to wipe off the map the only Jewish state in the world.
Yeah, look, I think that, first of all, I watched the clip. I have no idea how anyone can sit through this. Just as to be a regular watcher. I don't know. I see all of his super chats or whatever, his comments go, rushing past, and I'm just like, who are these people? But yeah, look, I think structurally the left is never going to come out and admit that they hate Jews, that they're anti-Semitic. Whereas the right will be, will absolutely do it. I think it's a structural issue. I also don't think that it's significant in terms of the position of Jews, and how it does or doesn't change the situation for Jews, whether or not the left or the right admits it or not. I think it's basically the same, and now you have Tucker Carlson, and increasingly, as of what last week, the Vice President of the United States basically agreeing with the proposition, that with the left's proposition on anti-Zionism not being anti-Semitism in exactly the same terms. Um, so this is, I mean, this is what we're dealing with, both on the left and on the right too. Um, having an actual discussion about these things, certainly is would be good, I guess, on one hand, but on the other hand, I'm not sure if it would change any minds. So that's the black pill.
Daniel, you subjected us to this clip, so your thoughts and reasoning behind it.
Uh, yeah, I mean, Stewart said Hasan didn't come off openly anti-Semitic, and yeah, anti-Semitism, especially with Hasan Piker, is something he doesn't hide that well, but I think in this specific clip, it didn't come out. But yeah, he absolutely is. I mean, people can look up earlier videos we did on Hasan Piker for more of that stuff. We wouldn't go that much into it today. Now, just quickly, somebody in the chat said that was altruistic of me to sacrifice my career for like a better society. I mean, the idea that I would like sacrifice like better world, and again, better world is not for other people. It's for me. I want to live in like a better culture, not for other people. I don't care about other people. So Hasan said this is a absolute loss for Ben Shapiro, which again, that's why we won't play that many clips otherwise, because a lot of it was just things we would agree with, even like properly calling out, which again, that is something we called out a few years ago for Ben Shapiro specifically, especially things like employing Candace Owens. I mean, that was going to blow up in his face eventually. And yeah, the way he said absolute victory for anti-Semitism is like, are you bragging, or is this? It was very much like informational, like this is just what I'm giving you. Do with that with what you want. And yeah, just generally this Jews going to Muslim status, as if like Jews until now, Tucker Carlson started being anti-Semitic, like everything was okay for Jews in America, or even Jews around the world. Like until Candace Owens started talking about the pedophile bohemian cults that created Judaism. Until that happened, like everything was okay. Like, come on, the idea that Jews haven't been, I don't know if like most persecuted group, but like until the state of Israel, and even now, right? The idea that Israel, the country that is at war with several countries at once for most of its existence, is the safest place for Jews on the earth, should tell you something about the way most of the world treats that specific group.
Before we go to the next clip, I should say, Daniel, first of all, when objectivism becomes the dominant philosophy in the culture, this channel will be, much bigger than it currently is. We can, finally try out the foie gras diet that I've been meaning to try. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, foie gras. I want to see what happens. We'll just become a new good news channel. And yeah, so don't worry about what negative consequences of a better world.
Yeah, but I would go do something different. It's I have
All right,
many
well,
different aspirations.
we will talk about it when the day comes. Somebody says, I haven't heard Pakman express any opinions on Israel. Has he? I have to say I don't watch him. To say I don't watch him regularly is an understatement. So yeah, it's very rare that I watch him. I can only guess.
I kind of do. He generally doesn't comment that much on it, but his overall view seems to be the sort of like center left way, is that Israel has a right to defend itself. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Hamas is an enemy of the peace. But probably Netanyahu shouldn't go as hard. Israel shouldn't go as hard, but not as far as Israel should be destroyed.
In what world is that center left? That sounds like
That is something.
just right of the center. But anyway,
No, that is like I'd say that's like almost Biden position. Like you stop it from doing a lot of things. You won't go as far as completely destroying it.
you tell Iran when Israel is about to strike.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean,
right.
it's still bad. I'm not like defending that position, but it's not because if we are talking about like somebody like Hasan Piker or people on the far left, they are calling for like destroying Israel the 2 days after October 7. Like they are okay with like destroying it. So putting
So
it
he's
in that
better than
general
Hasan
context.
Piker. All right.
Okay, that's one way of putting it.
All right. Is the next clip also Hasan?
Well, we have 2 clips for each, so
All right. Are we gonna play basically one by one, or are you gonna play somebody else?
okay, we can
Yeah,
do.
let's take a break from Hasan. I don't know if I can have 2 in a row. Let's hear David Pakman.
Okay, because this one is 35 seconds, and David Pakman was the one who made like least comments, but I think there's still something to talk about.
And he is being really made the heir apparent to MAGA. ARCUK has already said she wants JD for president 2028. Here is JD Vance with the incredibly patriotic and inspiring declaration that white people no longer have to apologize for being white anymore.
In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore.
Now, does anybody remember apologia for being white? I struggle to remember that.
Okay, if you want to go to me first of why I picked this one.
Sure.
All right, so there's this, whenever I think about like the right versus left, and objectivists often find themselves unsure. But whenever I listen to, let's say, right-wing intellectuals or generally people on the right, and compare it with what I see from the people on the left, it's like the right is clearly the ones who should be closer to us. They are clearly the ones who should be, or who even are sort of like more pro freedom, more pro even like Western civilization, more pro even like the way to speak about America. And it's so sad when I have to listen to like JD Vance, basically the future of the Republican Party, talking about like this weird thing about like now we can be white or whatever, and then you have the left sort of like rightfully like laughing at that, right? But I don't want to laugh with the left on anything. I don't want to associate with those people because of how much worse oftentimes they are on ideas. And my favorite example of this, I mean, I cannot imagine imagine Republicans from like 60 years ago and like comparing them to what is today. And that was when Ayn Rand still lived, and she wasn't even that like big of a fan of Republicans. But whenever she supported like a presidential candidate, it was always clearly a Republican, right? Because there was clearly something that was closer, even though a lot of ideas were bad. Because oftentimes what happens is, the right wing or Republicans oftentimes just adopt the leftist position from like 20 years ago. So they're always seemingly a bit better. So I guess the main reason for putting this one is just the frustration of I wish the right wing wasn't just like a lagging part of the culture, but actually had some alternative, which somebody like Ben Shapiro, right, had. Like, if you listen to Ben Shapiro's speech, that was American individualism, capitalism, free market, like good ideas would make America possible. And I wish more of it was like that, and not only lip service, but actually in reality, right?
And peace through strength, which also this new right, woke right, whatever you want to call it, rejects. Stuart, Daniel was talking about 60 years ago. 61 years ago, the Republican nominee was Barry Goldwater. I mean, he lost by a big margin, but he was the nominee. I can't imagine how a Barry Goldwater would do in the primaries today.
Because he was a Jew, or because he was pro-freedom?
He wasn't a Jew.
Oh, was it?
No.
Mm-mm.
Why did I think he was? Never mind. Okay,
He just sounds like a Jew.
Gold, and
No.
you assume that.
No. I not just because he was named Goldwater. I thought he was like actually Jewish.
I thought
I
so
think
too a long time ago, but
doesn't he
he
have
is
some
not.
Jewish
So
ancestry? But
I
I don't
think
know.
that's possible. I think that's
Yeah.
possible, but I know that he was not Jewish.
Well,
But
just
yeah,
having a Jewish sounding last name might disqualify him, but that's not the primary disqualification. The main thing is that Daniel, your idea that the Republicans are closer to us, I think what historically has been true. I don't know that it currently is. I think that at least the dominant forces now in the party are such that I think we'd have better chances convincing center left people of objectivism than these Christian nationalist types. Um, yeah. And as far as David Pakman goes, yeah, I mean, I'm not that familiar with him, but he's, you know, he's right that JD Vance's statement is horrific, and he's also right that white people, well, I don't know if I'm still considered white since I have Jewish descent, but as a nominal white person, I don't think I've ever been called on to apologize for that. But I will say that there has been in recent the last 10, 20 years this idea that straight white men are the reason for all the problems in the world. That there's no doubt that that's something that has been permeating the culture. It is especially among sort of the leftist youth culture. So while white people have been doing just fine, he is ignoring this very real trend that that allows Vance to make these kinds of statements and have the right nod their heads.
Yeah, Stuart, just to clarify, for the left, you're white, and for the bad part of the really bad part of the conservative movement, you're a Jew. So
Right.
just to clarify that,
Okay.
somebody in the chat says you hate whites. Tucker, Nick, Candace, Bannon are thumbs up. Yes, yeah, we are the reason why people had to apologize for being white. David.
yeah, I don't know. I'm going to uncharacteristically agree with my old buddy JD Vance here, and I mean, I think the war on white men and white people that has been driven in largely by elite media and academia in the United States is a multi-billion dollar industry for the last decade and a half. It's permeated it's permeated the publishing world. It's permeated the university spaces. What do you call it? Robin DiAngelo became a millionaire selling books about about the evils of white people. So I don't think it's a fantasy. I don't think it's a ghost thing. I mean, that's not to say that whites are being are being oppressed as a class in the United States. I don't think that's true. However, I think it's undeniable that when you have, let's say, left-wing institutional capture of of big businesses, what you've seen, an affirmative action program that is specifically oriented towards eliminating white people, young white men in particular. I mean, go through, I mean, the publishing industry is like my favorite one because it's so easy. When was the last time? I mean, if you're a male author of color, who's a minority, who's not writing about the evils of racism, then you're not going to get a book published. I mean, just look through the MacArthur grants. Look through this. They announce it and they say, yes, we think that we're bringing the affirmative action logic to American society and these institutions by trying to rebalance them using quotas. And I think that's what he's talking about. And I think it's a very real phenomenon. And unfortunately, I mean, that is bad in itself, just as a thing. But the reaction to it is also bad, which many of us at the time were screaming about. Just we're saying like, hey, um, you guys are creating you guys are creating anti-white. You guys are creating the need for a positive white, explicitly white identity just to combat the explicitly negative white identity that you guys have created. And I mean, I think the left made this monster, and there were no shortage of voices, like mine, and I, I'm sure, and I know, like many others, standing up and saying, "Hey, this is not good." So for Pakman to come out and say, oh look, haha, JD Vance is poor white people, blah blah blah. I think he knows exactly what got us to this place. He won't admit it because it's his friends, but I think he knows. I mean, he's seen the success of everyone from Robin DiAngelo to what's the guy's name? The illiterate guy who's the big the semi-literate guy who's the big writer. What's his name?
It's not Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yes, thank you.
It is.
Oh, I
It
was
could be
also wanted to guess that, but I didn't want to be racist because, like, oh, the only
yes, yes,
black
it
guy I
was.
know.
No, but like, I mean, who else could it be? I mean, he's the cause celeb. If he was just another guy out there, it would be like, okay, whatever, he's just another guy. But the extent of of obsequiousness to, I mean, just the entire elite media world getting on their knees for this guy of whatever, basically a subliterate guy saying things that you could never get away with talking about any other group. It's a real thing, and I think that I think that that's a point where, like, it makes sense for the crowd at TPUSA to cheer because that's what they think of when Vance says something like that.
Yeah, so I do agree with you. There was a real issue. The first episode that we ever did of a daily show on this channel, the Daily Objective, June 5th, 2020, was titled The Riots because there were riots back then in the US and they were race riots, even though they didn't call them that. That's what they were. Now, unfortunately, the right is so it's so much of it is even less principled than the left, and so much of it it is the anti-left, and so they let the left determine who they are, and they often actively become what the left accuses them of, and that's a shame. Yeah, you want to fight back against white supremacy, you want to fight back against Black Lives Matter. Individualism is the alternative. It's not, racism, but for different levels of melanin in your skin. That is not combating racism. That is doubling down on it. Daniel.
Yeah, just quickly. So, Betty Goldwater's father was Jewish. His mother was Episcopal, which I think generally under Judaism it would consider him non-Jewish unless he converts. So, yeah, maybe I'm just more modern way of Judaism that considers this both ways.
Oh, wait. I had one other point.
Sure.
Somebody in the chat, I wanted to respond to this. Somebody in the chat says, if we breed all races together, eventually we would be only one race. First of all, uh, first of all, no. Second of all, how do you do that? Like, do you force people to breed? Like, is there basically, you are of this color,
Some
therefore
countries tried it, by the way.
that doesn't make it right. That's
Well,
horrible.
yeah, of course.
Also, bigotry is, you will find a way to be a bigot in any system, and if somehow you manage to force breed people into generations from now all being exactly the same skin color, then the bigotry will be of a different form and about different um, aspects of a person. Daniel.
Yeah, and also like race is super weird the way like people think about it. Like in America, if you're like 1/8 black, you're considered black. In other countries, if you're like even little bit of white, I think like Brazil is something like that, where it's like if you're just a little bit of white, you're considered white. So again, even if there was just one race, some people would be a bit light skinned, some people would be a bit more. You could still find, maybe some weird genetic. I mean, just look at the caricature of Jews. Like, there's many ways people find a way to like categorize on some specific like differences.
In Nazi Germany, there were different categories, and I believe if you were 25% or lower, you could actually be in the Wehrmacht. But of course, there's a limit to how far you can go because there's still too much Jew in you. So, yeah, bigots will be bigots.
Or James says left-handed people, right? That was also like a big thing for some time. So who knows what, like when it comes to irrationality, there's many ways to go about it, and especially when it comes to tribalism.
I'm Jew, brown, and left-handed. I'm not gonna fare well.
I didn't know you were left-handed. What? But yeah, going back to that, because yeah, I actually wanted to make the exact point Dave was making. That yeah, there is this like anti-white like culture that has been becoming prominent. But what is always, and this is another thing, like when it comes to bad things, it often comes from the left, and what makes it even worse is the response is always bad. Like the response to this like anti-white racism or whatever we want to call it is now that anytime a black person gets a job, it's DEI. Like anytime or any non-white person gets like some job, gets to some high position, gets to anything, it's automatically DEI. So yeah, it's another thing of like I wish we had better culture where or response to something like BLM, right? You could even say there was some good idea for when it started, but one, picking that name was already you're putting yourself in identity culture, in identity wars, and the response from some people was of course white lives matter, which again doesn't address the issue, but is also the response to identitarianism is not Nick Fuentes, just our identity, which again, Nick Fuentes, right, a guy who's quarter Mexican, like there is a picture where Nick Fuentes is next to like a white guy. He looks incredible Mexican. It's kind of funny, but again, that is the that is the nature of tribalism, right? It's it puts people into tribes, and when your response is yeah, we should be in tribes, then yeah, if and that is the problem, right? Because people on the left, or sort of like the intellectual idea was that it is about your color, it is about identity. So yeah, response might be, yeah, it's about identity, and we are white, so we'll pick this identity, or we are Christian. One more thing I would mention from like the J.D. Vance thing, because he in the speech he talked about how Americans have a need for identity, which I would agree. I think there's been like a lack of what does it mean to be an American, but his response was Christianity. That's what unites people, not some idea, not the legacy of the founding fathers, not something to put us behind that is conceptual. No, it's just whatever type of God you believe in the sky.
Well, considering the amount of time we've given this topic, I think it's fair to say the racists have won. But the people who have definitely lost are the left-wing influencers who we haven't heard from. We haven't heard from Kyle at all. So let's see what he had to say in one of the. I'm not sure we'll make it through all 6 clips, but let's see how much we can make it.
So this one is minute and 12 seconds. I think we go through the whole thing.
There was a time when Irish people were not considered white. There was a time when Italians were not considered white. And we shifted the definition with time to broaden whiteness to include them in it, right? So when will we get to the point where, quote unquote, whiteness is expanded to include everybody who's in this country, right? And you might say that's ridiculous. Well, there was a time when it was viewed as ridiculous that Irish people would be considered white and Italian people would be considered white, right? That's all people want is equal treatment under the law. That's all they want. And these guys are trying to draw lines around like, no, these people are acceptable, but these ones aren't. Now, in my lifetime, we went from Hispanic people were not considered white. Now, you know, there's forms where it says like, are you non-white Hispanic or white Hispanic? So there's like a white version of Hispanic and a non-white version of Hispanic. That's another, the definition has changed just in my lifetime of what counts as white, right? So when you say we're going to create a white nationalist system, which kind of white nationalist? White nationalist by the standards of 1900? White nationalist by the standards of fucking 1800? White nationalist by the standards of 1950? White nationalist by the standards of the 2000s? White nationalist by what fucking standard? It's all so utterly arbitrary and made up.
Right. I mean, I don't, first of all, is expanding the definition of white to include, you know, what black people is that his solution to racism? That's the problem with these people. They, you know, look at something bad and have the stupidest solutions to it. You know, when is somebody's skin color matter in reality unless you're, you know, casting for a movie about Michael Jackson or, you know, yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure if maybe that's a bad example.
Well, you'll have
Yeah,
to.
and who would you cast for a role of Michael Jackson?
I know that was kind
You'd
of
have
the
to
point
get you'd have to cast several actors
of several different
of several
Of
several different
races.
races.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Oh wait, sorry,
I can
you
start because
screwed up the
I'll
whole
just
sequence here, and now I don't remember who's next.
well, I can just throw in one thing, and then you can come to me in the normal way we go. Because he said specifically like equal under law, like that was his thing. But equality under law for the left only matters when it comes to things like skin color. It doesn't matter if you make too much, right? Because then we need to have a special tax for you. We maybe need to break up your businesses. It doesn't matter if you make too little, right? Because if you make too little, what is it? Minimum wage laws might get you out of the labor market, but that is something we are willing to accept. So it's not equality under law. It's a specific kind of equality under law, specifically when it comes to race. And even then, right, it's not, because if you are from what is considered like a marginal group or something, then, you know, maybe you get affirmative action, although that has recently changed, or maybe you get some positive discrimination. So again, this idea that equality under the law is what the left, like that's the leftist position, is equality under the law, is ridiculous. No, they are for discrimination. It's just in the other direction.
Speaking of equality, thank you, Equal to Reality, for the super chat. Equal to Reality says, white, what do you mean? Do you mean Celts, Germanic, Romance, Latin, Slavic, Baltic, Greeks, Basques, Finns, Estonians, Sami? I don't know how that's pronounced with the accent and everything. But yeah, good question. We will pass it along to the people who care about this kind of stuff. Thank you, Shazbot, for the super chat. Shazbot quotes, let that be your last battlefield from Star Trek. All of my people are white on the right side. All of his people are white on the left side. If Shazbot can quote Star Wars one day and Star Trek the next day, we can certainly move past bigotry. Stuart.
Oh, I'll just throw in, I think that was specifically what Nick Fuentes did. He did like a calculation and he found out he's 86.1% white, which makes it okay. So,
Stuart.
I was not familiar with this commentator before this, but he's absolutely right about the arbitrary nature and the changing nature of race. And this whole idea in MAGA that there's such a thing as a white culture is absurd. That, you know, because of a certain amount of melanin in your skin, you share a cultural heritage. As the guess was a super chatter pointed out, you know, someone from a, you know, Slavic background has a very different cultural heritage than a Celt, someone from a Celtic background, and I, as a white appearing Jew, have a very different cultural background than, you know, somebody who, you know, from Sweden, ancestors from Sweden. So this whole idea of a white culture is a bizarre made up political thing that, again, is just a response to the left. As Daniel pointed out, so much of what they do is responsive. They're not coming up with ideas. They're not promoting positive values. They're just being reactive. And unfortunately, currently anyway, almost always their reactions are bad.
David.
Oh, I agree with that. I'm going to make a little, a bit maybe it's a provocative statement, maybe it's not. But I think that that this issue we're in convulsive spasms over this issue and kind of many other issues, but this one in particular, because I don't think we correctly understand what the United States is and always was, which is an empire. It's a continent-sized empire that, like any empire, is united by ideology. It has to be, because even at the early part of this country, we had European settlers from different places, and it was always I mean, yes, it was more, let's say, racially European at other times. Absolutely. But that said, the has been said earlier by Kalinsky and then by Stewart, um, the differences in the early part of the country, let's say between Protestants and Catholics, were massive. Between someone who's a Slav and someone who is an Anglo-Saxon, absolutely massive. And the only way to paper over these things was ideology. It was the ideology of the founding. And what we see now from a lot of these guys, and talking about heritage Americans, it's the same people. It's the JD Vance crowd. It's the same people, and they really have this idea that they can get a white, that this is a white Christian country, and somehow like snap their fingers and get to it. And I always like scratch my head and think, like, even if this wasn't impossible in 2025, 2026, like on a practical level, it's the country's too big. You can't say, these are the same people that say, hey, why is Israel, why can Israel have an ethno state and America can't? Well, these are two different things. That's like saying, why can't Europe have an ethno state? Well, because it's mixed and it's a continent-sized empire. It's a giant landmass full of a bunch of different types of people, and you have to negotiate that, and that's how they kind of police the boundaries. Actually, they don't really police the boundaries of white. Individuals kind of do. They do this, they do that themselves. Now we have people like Fuentes and others who do want to police that particular boundary. But when they bring this up, when they bring up white, I always say, okay, well, what's really the difference between white and brown? Brown doesn't mean anything. Brown means not black and not white. Is it Middle Eastern? Is it subcontinent? Is it, I mean, what exactly is it? It's a mix of things, and it could be nothing. So it's I don't know. I don't under I in some ways I don't understand what the obsession with this is. In other ways, I absolutely understand. It's because of our history, and also thankfully, well, not thankfully, but we have Barack Obama to thank for all of this. Because when I was growing up and I was young, the racism issue was basically dead. It was basically irrelevant to most people. Barack Obama comes along and very deliberately picks at that scab, and it was in Ferguson when he did that, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, we have the encouragement of the President of the United States to have strong racial consciousness, tinged with resentment and hatred for the other. And where's that going to lead? It's completely. It would, at that time, I knew that it would lead here, and many other people did too. But we're at that point in the movie.
Thank you, Gail, for the super chat. Somebody in the chat says right-wing intersectionality. Yeah, that is unfortunately very much what's going on here. By the way, on the ethno-state thing with Israel, I say this often on the channel, that I'm a reluctant Zionist. I would love to live in a world where a state of Israel isn't necessary. And if I were actually going to be in a conversation with somebody who says, well, why can Israel have an ethno state? My answer would be because of you. Because the kind of people who bring that up as a thing where, which they don't usually oppose, they just oppose, specifically in the case of Israel, that is the reason why Jews need a safe space, in the actual sense of the, of the phrase, not in the, safe from views I don't like, but safe from people who will kill me if I wasn't there. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like, there is a reason why there is no white culture in America, and the fact is because it's a lot of different experiences. Like, even if we are talking about African American culture, it's like very specific what we are talking about. If you are, let's say, a second or like a first generation Nigerian who had immigrated into America, you are not part of the African American culture, because it's specifically about talking about either the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow, or like growing up in like a ghetto in like a big city, right? So like somebody like Eminem has more with African American culture than like again, somebody who immigrates into America recently. JD Vance is not really part of even what we would consider like white American culture, because it's usually something like some Protestant, some like suburban, sort of like the white picket fences, that sort of thing is usually what is considered of that. Somebody, funnily enough, what Nick Fuentes would grew up with. I know way too much about the lives of these people. J.D. Vance was a hillbilly. He is not, and that's not like a derogatory term. Like, he grew up in like poor regions. That's what he was. It's like a different kind of culture, and trying to take like a lefty from LA, somebody growing up in suburban Detroit, and somebody like a hillbilly from Ohio, and trying to put them in the same like cultural group, it means nothing. The only thing that unites them is being white. And if that is your criteria, then you are completely destroying any sense of like understanding the world in ideas. And even like the idea of like African American culture, even that is a problem. Like, that, just because you grew up in that society doesn't mean you should have like certain ideas of doesn't mean just because you grew up in a ghetto, now you have to listen to Louis Farrakhan, and that is like your overview of like how you should look at the world, right? So even like when we talk about specific cultures, like the idea should be more like, when I meet, sometimes I go to London, there's a lot of Slovak people in London. Meeting them is nice because, you have certain experiences you grew up with, but usually they are racist. So I don't associate with themselves on when it comes to ideas, right?
I get
So
that.
I would just pop in to plug Thomas Sowell's excellent series of books, the And Culture books. I don't know if you know them. There's one called Migrations and Culture, another Conflict and Culture, and then Race and Culture. And they're all quite brilliant, and they all speak to many of the things that we've been discussing.
Well, after that, I really think we have to have somebody speak on behalf of white people. So let's listen to some more of Hasan Piker.
You're joking, but he jumps between considering himself Muslim and white, depending on what is convenient right now.
That's where we're at. And you will see more and more people, I think, on the right who want to stay on, who want to basically continue presenting this like weird, you have to be anti-woke for everyone but the Jews ass narratives, and they will just keep getting pushed aside because the market clearly doesn't want that. The market demands more. Jewish people pandering to the right is how I feel about TERF's law. Like, you're siding with the most misogynistic people that are not all on your side, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all right. Like I said, Stuart, it was you who told me that Stuart Hayashi, who has been on this show before, suggested that we do a show about Hassan Piker and what happened with him and Ethan Klein. That show is coming. Some of us just need, I think it's one of those shows where we need to schedule it a month in advance so we can, those of us who are going to be on it can watch whatever we have to watch in like 90-second clips just so we can stomach it. But yeah, any thoughts on that clip? Stuart,
Wait,
unless
oh,
Daniel wants to tell us why we
Yeah,
watched that clip.
exactly. Daniel, please tell us.
wait, what is this? Oh, it's because he said like basically he said like not being anti-Semitic is woke. And I don't, and I've heard it from a bunch of like speakers that we listen to. I listen to whole videos, all three of them. That like not being racist is like a leftist position, and not being anti-Semitic is like a woke thing. Like being woke on Jews means like not being anti-Semitic, which I found like that is not something like leftists should be able to take away. That like not being racist, not being discriminatory on race is like a left-wing thing because of course it's not even like they are the ones who came up with a lot of identitarianism. Like it originates with the left, the idea that now somehow that is like a leftist position, that if you don't think you should be racist, and even it's just saying you shouldn't be racist because the left is racist. They do categorize people based on color. So yeah, that was just something that jumped out to me.
Yeah, and by the way, Vered says in the chat, Hassan makes no sense most of the time. And Vered earlier said that she spent 6 months watching Hassan and these other guys until she couldn't take it anymore,
Yeah.
which is really impressive because I really can't take it anymore after
Yeah,
12
yeah.
But, yeah, Stuart.
I guess, yeah, a lot of what he says in this particular clip just doesn't particularly make sense. I think what we need to come to terms with is that, yeah, a lot of what people, there's no longer the idea that you have to be consistent. Like that's an objectivist idea that the culture has rejected. The idea that that your ideas, that your concepts need to fit together and be consistent. Nobody on the left or the right seems to believe that anymore. So, you know, they can spout things that are completely contradictory to things they said, previously. Our president does it literally within the same speech. So I guess, that sets the precedent. And we certainly see this on the right too. So I guess we're the fools for expecting any sort of consistency.
Yeah, and by the way, I see Enric mentioning, I don't know if there was a conversation here in the chat and I missed it, but Ann Coulter, I'm guessing you're speaking of, and yeah, maybe her day will come on this channel as well. It might be time to talk about her, but we'll see. David.
I don't know. I like Anne. I think she's great. She says things that I don't agree with all the time, but she's a decent person. Um, but I don't know. Look, I think that I mean I agree. I was going to use my get out of jail free pass here to to not comment on that clip because it didn't make any sense to me either. But I will say that in regards to what Stuart just said, which I think he's right. I think people have learned now, and it's really really cynical thing. I don't think it's particularly a conscious information warfare strategy, though it is absolutely an insight that people who do fifth generation information warfare strategy have noticed, which is this stuff works a lot better when it's inconsistent. So, for example, when Steve Bannon is pro-Israel for years and then does a complete about face in a day, just snaps and turns on a dime, um, he does not spend any time explaining what caused that flip. He doesn't. He doesn't say, hey, it's taken me a while and I've thought this through and blah, blah, blah. He doesn't. Because the lack of explanation causes more destabilization and it causes more it causes the audience's brains to fire in a very different way. So I think that is part of it that some of these guys kind of subconsciously understand, even if it's not articulated. It's that when you say stuff that doesn't make sense, you profit.
Yeah, I was gonna say your get out of jail free card was revoked the moment you praised Ann Coulter, but we might actually talk about her at some point, and if we do, I will talk about my Ann Coulter phase, which was, decades ago, but I did devour her books at some point and got value, and I would still say there's value in some of them, but yeah, there's we'll get to it when we get to it, Daniel.
I mean, a left-handed person reading Anna Coulter. I mean, I have to rethink my employment after this. Well, I should say I don't know much about Ann Coulter. I just know her like a cultural sort of figure. And I'm surprised by the amount of books she's written because I've been watching. I watched some like a satirical podcast, and the interviewer kept giving like gifts of books. And it was all Ann Coulter books, and I think he gave him like 15 or something. And I'm like, how many books did she write? But yeah,
Look, she's very
yeah.
smart. She's very smart. She's an unbelievably great person to hang out with. She's very well read and she's very intellectually curious. So you may disagree with her about stuff, and she will like nothing better than to, in a very friendly way, discuss it with you. So, like, you know, as far as I'm concerned, like just on a personal level, you couldn't ask for more.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, I'm not taking big position on this, and maybe I'll when I get into her more. But yeah, I think when it comes to the flipping of let's say people like Steve Bannon, I think it could be two things. I think either it could be I mean, I don't know if I want to bring up the example of Candace Owens, but I think Candace might have been ideological in the other way. And when she, changed what she believes in, it usually, like once you accept conspiracism, the dominoes fall, right? You can't, the whole thing goes with it. Usually you cannot hold a lot of contradictions in your head. You need a way to like tidy it up, and oftentimes tidying up meaning is going fully anti-Semitic because that's the consistent way once you accept conspiracism. And the other way, which I think might be the Steve Bannon thing, is there is no ideology to speak of when it comes to like proper view of the world in terms of because I think I don't know of Steve Bannon much like before he came into Trump's life. But if we're talking like when it comes to support for Israel, it seems to like not something ideological. It's something you do because you're Republican, which I think even Trump accepts to some extent. Like a lot of things he just believes or he just stands for because he is on that side. Like I don't know if you guys remember after COVID happened and Trump had a big, Trump pushed for the Operation Warp Speed, getting the vaccine so soon. He tried to brag about it once in front of a Republican audience. Once he got the boost, he never like mentioned it again, and he never stood by it again. So I think it's a sort of thing that, yeah, you don't have to answer why you flipped your position because you didn't even like properly explain why you had it from the start, right? Like it was never ideological. It was always just this is the thing we go with. And I think this is not just a right-wing thing. I think this is like a broader culture. The fact is that most of culture accepts basically the same ideas, and the differences are almost just tribalistic. I mean, as channel named after Ayn Rand, everybody believes in the idea of altruism. So the sort of differences are just how to specifically apply it. That's why I think especially people from the far left and far right, they are very much transitionary like groups. People from one side jump over to the other side very quickly because they are united by same ideas. They are both anti-American. They are both for some sort of tribalism, and it's very easy to jump between them. That's why you can have somebody like Mussolini who few years ago was a communist and then is leading a first fascist nation. That is something that happens. That's why and that's why you even see, I'm not sure how much you guys follow Cenk Uygur, but Cenk Uygur is now very friendly with Tucker Carlson. And it makes sense because just like the communists and Nazis in Weimar Germany, they had the same enemy, the government of Weimar Germany.
Chandler in the chat takes responsibility for the Ann Coulter topic becoming a thing in the chat, and I'm not surprised at all. Thanks, Chandler. Stuart, parting thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think it was David Pakman elsewhere in his, not in a clip we did, but pointed out that the audience at this Turning Point conference basically cheered for whoever was speaking. And I think that just points to the emotionalism that's behind all of these. These are not ideological movements so much as emotionalist, tribalist movements, which is not a good thing. You can find me. I have a Substack, stuartmargolis.substack.com, and also on Facebook.
So I hate to defend the audience, but when you see something and there's thousands of people in the audience and you hear cheers, that doesn't mean the same person is necessarily cheering. It could be that some people are cheering for one thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people, by the way, who just cheer because of the delivery sort of at the end. You can hear it, especially in the Megyn Kelly stuff where she's really, she sounds more intelligent, but the things she say, are not like correct. But people are, so yeah, that's my half-hearted defense of the audience there. David, parting thoughts, and where can people find you?
So I'll do a more fulsome defense of the audience at TPUSA by saying of the several speeches and clips that I watched. I mean, look, anytime you go to any large gathering of people, there's going to be, there's an instinct to clap and to cheer. And you don't go to a concert and just boo when the performer comes on. But so there's that, but then there's also the fact that there were many different responses for many different speeches at the TPUSA event. Ben Shapiro was cheered wildly. He had the room in his hand. When Steve Bannon came out and trashed Ben Shapiro, it was a thud. The same as when Tucker came out and talked about how Islamophobic the right is, zero response. So I mean, based on that, based on a lot of other clips that I saw and full speeches, I have to say that I was surprised at how hip the audience was, and how closely they were actually following along. It wasn't just mindless, cheering for everything that was being said. And frankly, it wasn't really a mixed crowd either. Because based on polling that we saw, and I think I'm pretty sure that you guys covered it. Here there was extensive polling of the audience at the TPUSA conference, and those people did think by a large margin that Islam was a far bigger threat than Tucker Carlson would be happy to believe. And he got very pissed about that. And this weekend he did an interview with the American Conservative where he blamed the Jews, which is what you'd expect him to do. But anyway, all of that said, you can find me on X at Dave Raboy, REABOI, and at Substack at daveraboy.substack.com.
Daniel, parting thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I was basically gonna make Dave's point. Like, people can look at sort of the speeches and applause that was getting. I think Ben Shapiro was the most interesting because that was the first thing that happened. So I think people were a lot of unsure of what was going to happen that weekend. So I think when he mentioned Candace, it was like there was few claps and few boos, and I think once the few boos like started happening, then there was a big cheer because I think people just wanted to overwhelm those boos. So yeah, I think generally it looks like And also we are talking about very specific crowd. We are talking about people who are going to Turning Point USA events, which in many cases those are people who are part of Turning Point USA, or now newly, people that might want to invade Turning Point USA. I mean, that is the whole shtick of Nick Fuentes and has been for a time, trying to infiltrate Turning Point USA events. So you can find me on my YouTube channel, Damned Dan, and yeah, that's about it.
I'm Razi Ginsburg on X. Tomorrow on the reality show, we will talk about today's meeting between Netanyahu and Trump. I have no idea what we're going to say because I have no idea what we're going to see in that press conference. I hope it's not going to be very bad. It might be very good. You never know. And yeah, the Daily Objective will also be on. I'm not 100% sure. I think maybe we're doing the Megyn Kelly episode tomorrow, but I do say that often. So it will be on when James is better and not a day sooner. But yeah, we are back tomorrow with both shows. Either way, thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.